You all for joining us today for Technology Tuesday. My name is Jennifer and I'll be your moderator today. Any questions that you have as we go through today's presentation, you can put those right in the chat and we'll be sure to address those. Additionally, today's presentation is being recorded, so if you wanted to watch it back later, share it with a colleague, we will have that available for you later today, if not first thing tomorrow morning. So I already see some questions coming in, so excellent. We will definitely be addressing those during the presentation and definitely at the end. So a little bit about out-of-the-box technology. If you haven't joined us before, or maybe it's been a while, we are anything and everything QuickBooks. We work with all the QuickBooks family of products and the third-party automation products that kind of sync up to make it really the most robust accounting software out there. We work on data services, business services, and training, integration, support, and more when it surrounds all of those elements. So today's speaker and trustee PowerPoint advancer today is Kirsten Wentworth. Kirsten is an executive director on our team here at Out of the Box Technology in the Accounting and Data Services Department. She heads up an amazing team and is really kind of spearheading the 1099 team that is going to be really instrumental in your success to kick off January. So we're talking about 1099s today, getting ahead of the curve a little bit so we're all not waiting to last minute to make sure that we can meet deadlines and really have a successful experience. So before we dive completely into getting prepared for 1099s, I have a poll for you as promised. So our first poll is just kind of gauging how many 1099s do you file each year. So I'm going to launch this poll. And our options are less than 10, you've just got a handful, 10 to 20, maybe 20 to 50, or more than 50, you've got a ton of vendors out there, or maybe you're not sure. You're not the one who handles it, or it's a little overwhelming, you don't really know. So just so we can kind of gauge where everyone is at. And as those roll in, we've got about 2/3 of people have voted, Kirsten, and 30%, about a third, are saying more than 50. So our audience today has a lot. But we also have 20% saying less than 10, 20%, 10 to 20, and some don't know. So this is a great webinar then for all of you to be on, especially those doing more than 50. I'm sure that can be kind of a pain to do all of those 1099s in by the deadline, right? So that kind of brings us to our next question, which is, would you consider 1099s a pain point? So I'll launch that poll just quickly. Yes, no, I'm not sure. Maybe you've never done them. You're not the one to do it. Maybe you don't think it's a pain point, but after we talk today, maybe it is a pain point. So we'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on 1099s. And as kind of expected, we've got about 40 to 45% saying yes, which probably is why you're on this webinar today. So you're in the right place, and hopefully after working with us here at Out of the Box, 1099s are not a pain point. We can take that load off of you and carry that burden. So thank you all for responding, and I'll give your fingers a rest and let Kirsten dive right in to our presentation about getting prepared for 1099s.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jennifer. So today we will dive into the 5 W's of 1099s. So I don't know if you've joined Out of the Box for any of our other Tech Tuesday presentations, but if you have, then I'm sure you're able to see that today's presentation is definitely the most riveting and exciting one we've ever put on. But in all seriousness, 1099s may not be the most exciting thing that a business owner faces, but it's definitely important that as business owners that we understand what's required of us and just make sure that we are staying in compliance. So it's definitely a necessary part of running a business. So the first W of 1099s is, what are they? So I'll go into what their purpose is besides, just giving us one more thing to worry about during tax season. The second is going to be who gets one. So this is important because we want to make sure that we're not underreporting, but there's also no need to submit more 1099s than necessary and create more work and expense for yourself. So the third item is going to be, when do I file? This is especially important since knowing deadlines with the IRS, is always very vital. And where do I send the information? So besides just filing our 1099s with the IRS, there are state requirements that do differ by state. So it's important that we understand that as well. And lastly, why are they important? So we will touch on all of those items today. So first, what is a 1099? So a 1099 is an IRS form that's used to report income that is received through sources other than direct employment. So the 1099s are going to go to people who do work for your company, whether that's goods and services that are not direct employees that do not receive W-2s from your company. So the most common 1099 that we see, as well as the most common that a lot of our clients see as well, are going to be the 1099 NEC. And the NEC stands for non-employee compensation. So the IRS does refer to 1099s as information forms. So that just basically means that these forms send information to the IRS and they do not require a payment from the submitting business. However, unfortunately, no payment required with the forms does not equal no possibility of a monetary fine for non-compliance. So it is important to remember that distinction as we go into 1099 season here in a few weeks. There are additional types of 1099s, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen, whether it's for rents and royalties or interest or different things like that. But again, what we're mainly going to be focusing on today are the 1099s that do relate to non-employee compensation. So what do I need? Really, there are two main things that you'll need to make sure that you are staying in compliance with your 1099s. The first one being W-9s from all of your vendors. So anybody that does work for your company and works with your company that is not a direct employee of your company, you will need to receive a completed W-9 from them, completed in its entirety and fully accurate. The second point is going to be good payment records. So what we want to make sure of is that all payments to those vendors are going to be coded correctly in your QuickBooks, because we want to make sure that we're able to calculate correct dollar amounts for the 1099s. Obviously it's important that we're not understating the payments on the 1099s, but it's also just as important to the vendor that we're not overstating payments, because on the vendor side, if they receive a 1099 that's overstated, then one of two things is going to happen. Either they'll come back to you and let you know that their 1099 is too high, and then as a business owner, you will have to file an amended 1099, which is just going to, incur more cost and time on your end. Or maybe that vendor doesn't realize that their 1099 is overstated. And when they go to file their taxes, then they will be overstating their income, therefore also overstating their taxes owed, which is never what anybody wants to do. So we just definitely want to make sure that the dollar amounts are correct. One tip and trick that I learned years ago, just because I do know that receiving W-9s from vendors can also be a pain point for a lot of businesses, is when you start working with a new vendor, it was recommended to me not to pay them their first check until you received a completed W-9 from them. So letting them know, hey, we need your W-9. I have your check here ready for you. I'll gladly give it to you or mail it to you or send it out to you via ACH once I have your W-9. It's amazing how much faster those W-9s come in when their payment is on the other end of that. And then this way too, it just saves you as a business owner a ton of time come December and January, going through your vendor list, reaching out to vendors, asking for W-9s, and sending that email after email during the holiday season when everybody's busy. So this way you'll be able to spread that responsibility out throughout the year rather than waiting until, all at one time to get that done. So who gets a 1099? Generally, anyone who is not a direct employee of a company who is paid for goods and services during the fiscal year, who is not a corporation, will receive a 1099. There are some exceptions to this, but that is a good general rule of thumb to use when determining who should receive a 1099 or not. So some important dates to keep in mind. Obviously, the IRS date is the most important date up there. So January 31st is when the 1099 NECs will be due. That's definitely a big date to keep in mind. However, December 16th is an important deadline with Out of the Box, just because if you do decide to sign up with Out of the Box before December 16th, you will be able to take advantage of the early bird rate as opposed to signing up after December 16th. So that's another big date if you'd like to save a little bit of money in the 1099 filing process. So where do I send the information? So with our 1099 team, we utilize a secured private file sharing site that we will use to send information back and forth with our clients who are using Out of the Box to file their 1099s. So since we are going to be sending W-9s back and forth and 1099s back and forth, all of which have tax identification numbers on the forms, we want to make sure that we're doing that in a way that is secure, where you don't just have, all of that tax information just floating out there. So, we want to make sure that we're using that file sharing site so that, first of all, everything will be in one place for you and for us, but also to make sure that everything stays secure and private. So why is this important? First of all, timeliness, making sure that we get all of those 1099s filed before or on January 31st, for the obvious reason of avoiding penalties and fines for non-compliance. If a business misses even just 5 to 6 forms, it is possible for penalties to start in the thousands of dollars. Sometimes the penalties can be less than that, but the maximum amount of penalties just for missing, about 5 to 6 forms could end up in the hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So we want to make sure that we are not needlessly incurring those kinds of penalties. And then also, just dealing with the IRS and then finding yourself under the IRS microscope. So it's been reported that even just receiving one letter from the IRS can increase your likelihood for future audits by 50%. And we want to make sure that, we're not finding ourselves in that position over something like an informational return. So definitely making sure that we're keeping those deadlines in mind, as we go into 1099 and then into tax season.
Great, thank you, Kirsten, so much for those 5 W's. I know we have a bonus question after this poll, but just to engage everyone again, after kind of everything Kirsten has talked about and you've thought about this a little bit more, how confident are you in the process of filing 1099? So I'm going to launch our last poll here. Are you very confident, somewhat confident, and maybe some of these 5 W's have caused you some pause and would like a little bit more training, or you're not confident, like you need some help. You're ready to talk with one of our team members here. So I'll give that a couple more seconds. You guys are great. I'm getting such a high engagement percentage on these polls. So thank you so much. And looks like just over half, Kristen, are saying they're somewhat confident, but could definitely use a little bit of training. But we do have some confident viewers as well, and some that are really looking for help. So a good mix here. We appreciate that. Hopefully this information kind of eases your mind a little bit, knowing that we're here for you. And we're ready to take that off of your plate. So I'll close this last poll and Kristen, let you continue on.
Okay, well, sounds good. Okay, so since there are a handful today that do have at least some confidence level with 1099s, but there are some that don't have that same confidence level, just touching on how out of the box can help with that process. So, I mean, there's the obvious, the more obvious reasons, by having out of the box file your 1099s, that will eliminate the time burden on business owners. So, you're already handling your business and personal taxes come January, going into February, it's right after the holidays, which is a busy time. So by having out of the box handle your 1099s, it essentially allows you to focus on where your time is best spent. So essentially you focus on your expertise while we focus on our expertise. But on a more specific and detailed level, there are also just the logistics and issues of filing 1099s. So, you as a business owner are responsible for making sure that your 1099s are correct. So, it's something as simple as your business name, the correct business address, which may differ from a mailing address, your TIN, your tax identification number, and the dollar amount that you paid the vendor. All of that is your responsibility to make sure is correct on your 1099. What's also the business owner's responsibility is the vendor's TIN, their tax identification number. So you might be thinking, well, the vendor gave me their completed 1099 or their completed W-9 so that I could send them their 1099. So I'm good then, right? Well, no, unfortunately, it is on the business owner to make sure that that TIN is correct. It could be something simple as, your vendor might have, accidentally had a typo when they were typing in their TIN. Maybe, and I mean, I've seen it a handful of times, a vendor might have 3 or 4 different companies and they accidentally put the wrong TIN on the W-9 that they completed for you. It could be an error as simple as that, but it is on the business owner, not the vendor, to make sure that the 1099 is correct. So out of the box as accountants and bookkeepers, it's one of those odd things that we love helping confirm for business owners that their vendor's TIN is correct, just so that we don't have to do the whole back and forth with the IRS because the 1099s are being rejected. And then just play that never-ending guess and check game, going back to the vendor, getting corrected W-9s, and that whole process just takes up, it wastes your time and it just will incur additional costs. And so by making sure on, that the TIN is correct before any 1099s are filed, it saves us time, it saves you time, and it saves you money. So that's definitely one way that we love helping business owners make that process a lot smoother. And we also at Out of the Box have a dedicated 1099 team. So this really just helps us to service our customers a lot more expeditiously and just make sure that the 1099 filing process is as smooth and enjoyable as it can be, or at least as enjoyable as possible considering we're talking about filing IRS tax forms. But like that, again, you know, this process may not be the most exciting thing that you'll go through as a business owner, but it can definitely, you know, there's ways to make this process more of a headache and a pain point at an already busy time of year, or there's ways to make this, you know, smooth and uneventful. And, you know, whenever it comes to filing tax forms, I always think that describing the experience as uneventful is about as good as you're gonna get. So that's definitely what we want to strive for in this process. So for the 1099 pricing, that December 16th date, if you're able to lock in by December 16th, you'll be able to get that early bird pricing of $300 for your first 10 vendors. It will be $350 after December 16th for your first 10 vendors. And then it will be $30 per vendor for each vendor past that initial 10. And we really want to encourage and reward people who are reaching out to us earlier. That helps you as a business owner get you on the schedule sooner. We can get started on making sure that we have everything together for you sooner. And it you know, helps you and it helps us. So we definitely want to make sure that we are rewarding people that are able to do that, but, you know, also at the same time, you know, sometimes things happen and, you know, we can't do it by December 16th for whatever reason, you know, so then the $350 would be the standard pricing after that. Okay, so that is about all the information that I have for all of you for 1099s. At this point, Jennifer, I guess we can open it up for questions if we have any.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kirsten. So we do have a couple questions coming in. Again, if you have something, feel free to type that in. So our first question is, how do you handle vendors that fill out a W-9 that shows they're a single member LLC that give you an EIN and not a social security number? Is that an issue, or how do we handle that?
So that really just goes back to double checking the TIN, and we are able to do that internally to make sure it is possible that a single member LLC does have an EIN and not a social security number. But that would be one of those times that we want to just make sure that that is actually correct so that the 1099 doesn't get rejected by the IRS, and we're able to file it and have it accepted the first time.
Excellent. And so there's another question actually about confirming the TIN numbers, so that definitely covered that, and that's included in the pricing structure, that whole process, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, excellent. And then we had someone who asked a question about kind of what we do versus what, for example, they're using Gusto for their payroll, and kind of where we start and Gusto ends, or vice versa. So I know that Gusto can handle 1099s, but we can also kind of do all of that prep work that happens beforehand. That way, when you give all of your information, you give the list to process to Gusto, it's ready to go, and there's less kind of back and forth work on that end. So we can work collaboratively with any of those other payroll companies that you might be using if you're not using QuickBooks Payroll. But Kirsten, did you have anything else to kind of comment on that?
No, I mean, I think you covered most of that. Again, you know, it would just be, there are most times there's going to be vendors that you paid outside of Gusto that would require a 1099. So then, you know, you would be covering maybe some of them, just not all of them.
Certainly. Great. Thank you so much. And one question actually that was emailed to me the other day after the individual registered was about contractors who maybe they're US citizens or they did the work here, but now they live abroad, and how sending out those 1099s to a foreign address, how that works. I've been advised that We can email the 1099 if the individual is living out of country. But do you know, Kirsten, if there is an option to mail it physically, or do we just prefer the email version to any foreign address?
Typically, I've just seen them emailed. That said, occasionally I have run into exceptions to that. So I would say overall email would be sufficient. But again, if there was, an exception as to why that was not feasible or not the preferred method, we could definitely handle that on a case-by-case basis, certainly.
Excellent. All right, so I think that's, I'm just scrolling through here. Oh, we had one more question just come in. Can we cover the W-9 federal tax classifications and which would receive a 1099? So a partnership or LLC partnership, do those receive 1099s?
So typically a corporation would not receive 1099s. So that's where when we receive the W-9s, there is a place where the vendor would designate what kind of corporation are they? Are they a sole proprietor? Are they a partnership? Are they an S Corp, a C Corp? And typically a corporation would not receive a 1099. That said, I have seen sometimes those classifications, maybe a business owner might be incorporated as an LLC, but taxed as an S Corp. And so, there's definitely times where, again, that's where that TIN verification, just to confirm the TIN, to confirm the corporation status, different things like that, having that double check before the 1099 filing is important because, again, for a corporation, you don't need to file that 1099. So there's no need to incur that cost and, to file something that isn't necessary. But again, we want to make sure that we're not missing anybody that should be receiving a 1099.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions. Thank you, everyone who engaged with us, both on the polls as well as sending in your questions. If you jump off today's webinar and you're like, oh my goodness, I needed to ask about this, definitely feel free to reach out. On our last slide, we've got some contact information, and we'll also be emailing you a link to this recording and some other resources that we have. So you can always reply to us there or give us a call anytime. So thank you so much. Join us again all month. We've got a full stack of Technology Tuesdays as we prepare for year end. So today was the kickoff of this series with 1099s. Next week, we will be talking about data migration. So taking a look and seeing, are you in the right QuickBooks product? Maybe you're not using QuickBooks, but you're thinking about switching to QuickBooks. And how out-of-the-box technology can help you make that smooth transition from maybe it's QBO, you're ready to go to Desktop Enterprise, maybe you're in Sage and you want to move over to QuickBooks. Whatever your situation might be, we're here to walk through and see what's the best choice for your business and for your situation. So we hope you can join us then. Then on the 15th of November, we'll have Avalera come and talk about how to make 2023 your best tax year yet. They'll be talking sales tax automation, a lot of great tips and tricks surrounding sales tax, so you don't want to miss that one. And then after the Thanksgiving holiday, we'll be talking about the year-end checklist that you need. So as you go through December, you know what boxes to check and where you might need some attention. So we hope you can join us for any or all of those. Again, those are all available on our site. For you to register anytime. And our follow-up email will include that information for you as well. So Kirsten, thank you so much for presenting today, and to our audience who joined us, we appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your Tuesday to listen to us kind of talk through 1099s and how we can help you. That's definitely what we're here for. We're anything and everything QuickBooks, and 1099s do fall under that umbrella. And we want to allow you to focus on the front end of your business, growing your business, working with your customers. And so we'll handle this kind of like finicky back of the office kind of stuff that you may not want to be working on. So we're here for you for that. Reach out anytime, and we hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.